And I could not ask for a better speaker, so let's welcome Alex.
And the reason I don't really socialize because I don't really like people. So.
I don't like you either.
Well, it is not y'all, it's me. I'm Alex, I'm an alcoholic. And happy birthday again, Whitney. Thanks for letting me speak. And I always like to be able to do some service work, so just on Tuesdays. But, anyways, so I'll start by saying this. Drugs are a part of my story, and I think that's why Gravely Affected is kind of taken off in its own little category of AA, because there's so many people here that were cross-addicted that, just because of the substance you've used doesn't mean that you have to go to NA or CA or AA, An A is an A, I think. And I think the 12 steps work for any type of problem. Like, seriously, I think everybody should have a 12-step program in their life for anything. So my sobriety date is May 11th, 2017. I have a sponsor. I think he has a sponsor. And
Like at meetings.
Well, my sponsor. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into all that. My sponsor's got a sponsor, and his sponsor is his sponsor. So some people have like a family tree or whatever, and mine's just like they go back and forth. So it's kind of just cut off right there. Where to start? I usually like to start off with my childhood. A lot of people have the story of alcoholism in their family and like a bad setting in the home when they were children, and that's kind of not my story. My dad, my biological dad, he's definitely one of us. He was definitely one of us. He's no longer with us, and I'll get into that later. But my stepdad and my mom, they gave me a really, really good upbringing. I pretty much got whatever I wanted. I wasn't spoiled by any means, but my dad taught me a lot of principles and a lot of things in life to go off of, and I was able to use those today. So yeah, growing up, I grew up in Florida. I'm from Florida, and the age-old question is, was I born an addict or an alcoholic, or did I develop into one? And I think I was born one, because from as far back as I can remember, my first addiction, I guess, being probably video games or something like that, right? I'd be playing my game, my mom and dad say, "You gotta go outside to play," and I'd throw a huge temper tantrum, I'd cry, and anything, ever since I can remember, anything that made me feel good or got me out of myself, I loved it. And I wanted to do it all the time. Like, it's an immediate obsession. Today, and I'll get back into this later, but today, I'm tobacco free. Yeah, I'm not nicotine free, but I'm tobacco free. Half measure, right? Anything I like, I'm gonna do it. I don't care. Anyways, yeah, and then growing up, I always felt like I had to impress people. I always felt like I had to be a part of. I always felt like I was missing out on something if I wasn't involved with it. And I was able to overcome those things a little bit. But ever since I can remember growing up, I'm like a chameleon. I blended in with the sports players. I blended in with the nerds at the Yu-Gi-Oh table. I blended in with the skateboarders. I blended in with the pot smokers. And I just, I had like one friend in every clique, and I kind of just felt like a part of everybody somewhat. So I was really good at just staying friendly and nice and hanging low and just trying to really not be bothered. I didn't want to be the center of attention. But I did want to feel wanted and loved and all that stuff too at the same time. So it was kind of like a struggle. But anyways, yeah, got in with the pot smokers, and well, I was 14 years old, started smoking some pot, And from there, it progressed. I had pretty good grades growing up from, kindergarten through about 10th grade. About 10th grade. All A's and B's, all the time. As soon as I started smoking weed, shit went down to F's real quick. So I don't want, a lot of people say, oh, weed makes me concentrate, or it gives me energy, or it doesn't do none of that for me. It makes me lazy and very unambitious. I like to eat, I like to sleep, and that's about it. One leads to another, and so, I started smoking here and there, and I started smoking every day. Started dipping, started smoking cigarettes. Life's getting out of control real quick. And I'm serious, because at the age of 16 or 17, when you're not old enough to buy nothing, or you can't get nothing, all of a sudden, I remember the first time I was ever like, oh, I really need a cigarette right now. I was like 16 years old. And I hated that feeling of wanting something so bad. I just couldn't get it. And so, it went, and these are just like the precursors and to a much greater thing. I remember, and that goes with just cigarettes and weed and stuff, but that turned into like romances and relationships, that turned into money, that turned into drugs, that turned into alcohol, that turned into a whole bunch of stuff. And I just hated that feeling of desperation of wanting something so bad, and I just couldn't have it. And it just made me like really depressed. I'm in high school, I'm doing my thing, and starting to drink. I remember the first time I took a drink of anything. I was at my friend Lewis's house, and they were playing beer pong. I've never played beer pong before, and I can remember taking my first drink ever, and it didn't taste that great. It's just beer, but I instantly felt like a different person. Like I just felt like I'm a part of. I had a beer in my hand. I'm hanging out with all the older people, the cool people, and I just felt like I was the shit. And after a few games, I remember playing a few games, and then I just woke up, boom, and I was like, "Whoa, I want to do that again." And I did. I did for the next about 8 years or so. I did, and so I quit going to school. I quit doing all the stuff that I should have been doing. I lost my first job. I found my first real relationship, and I was instantly addicted to that, trying to be in control of a relationship. You got to do what I say, because I'm too scared to lose you. Like, why didn't you text me or call me back? Well, I was asleep. Well, no, you weren't. You were cheating on me. My mind always goes to the worst possible thing every time for no reason at all. And from a very, very young age. And so life's a train wreck pretty early on. Mom and Dad find out, the extent of my use and my drinking. And at this point, I'm 17 years old, and I'm doing the occasional powder. I'm smoking weed every day, and I'm drinking every day. And so it's really not that out of control yet. I'm still able to go to the beach and go fishing every day with my friends, and still going to the drum circle at nighttime. And if you ain't been to a drum circle, it's too late for y'all. But it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun, and I don't know what happened. The book talks about this line that we cross, this imaginary, invisible line, and I don't know exactly when I crossed that line. Maybe it was the first time I ever drank or used, or maybe it was 17, 18, 19 years old, but I remember I think I was 18 years old, and it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we're coming home from the bar, and everyone's, got work the next day, and everyone's passing out and stuff. I'm like, what's wrong with y'all guys? Come on, it's time to party. And I'm sitting here calling every single plug in my phone that I got, and I'm trying to find some MDMA. I'm trying to find some more cocaine. I'm trying to, just hit up like every single girl on Messenger. Hey, 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 hey. Unbelievable. And early on, about at that age, I was trying to figure out why everybody didn't want to party as hard as me. And I thought there was something wrong with them. And then once I got sober in the future, I'm looking back and I'm like, no, there's something wrong with me. My friends can have a couple beers and go to work the next day, and that's that. I can't turn it off. And I didn't realize this for a long time. But, well, so I start, I was a loser. I'm just going to put it that way. And I go sign up for the Marine Corps, go to MEPS, take my drug test, failed it for pot. And they say, well, you can come back in a year and try again. And I say, well, shit. And so I give myself a whole year to get sober. I go back and join the Navy this time, go to MEPS again, fail my drug test. And they said, well, don't come back here. And that's a pretty shitty feeling, knowing that that you made a commitment, you're going to do something, and then you don't do it. And so that kind of got me down. And I had a couple buddies that joined the armed forces and stuff, and they were they were going off and doing their own thing, and I was kind of jealous of them. And because I didn't really have any options at the time. Back in like 2011, 2012, as like a young man with no experience in trades or anything like that, the best job I got was like Waffle House, and I just felt like a loser. And I started working at the Waffle House, and that's where I met this guy. I was living with my sister at the time, and I ended up moving in with him and his dad, and then my friend Jimmy, and he introduced me to pain pills, and so I started doing pain pills. And I ain't gonna go down. I'm gonna cut it. I'm not really gonna cut it off there, but I'm not really gonna go too far into all that because we all know what happens when we start using. But with one thing comes another. So I start using pain pills, and I'm just hanging out with some interesting characters at this point. And you got to think, being 18, 19 years old, hanging out with a bunch of 40, 50-year-olds that are all messed up looking. And I'm like, I'm sitting there I'm sitting there and I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, how did I end up here? Like, how did I end up here? And not long after that, started doing methamphetamines, and it wasn't long after that where I became homeless pretty quick. I just quit paying my bills, quit caring about all my responsibilities, and there's when you're that young, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you're panhandling. And you got people you went to high school with just a couple years ago, laughing at you and throwing shit at you and stuff. It takes a pretty heavy toll. It's pretty demoralizing. And I never thought when I was like younger, like, I'm gonna grow up and be homeless, or I'm gonna grow up and be this or that. I thought only like the lowest of the low were homeless. I didn't realize how easy it was. And so anyhow, I'm in Florida. I don't know if you guys ever been homeless in Florida in the summertime, but it rains about every single night, about from 4:30 to about 5:30, 6 o'clock. It just downpours every single day. And so my bag, my clothes, everything I had would just get soaked every single day. And I was living in like this little shitty tent. And so, there's really no way to get money. So the only way I knew how to get money was start breaking the law. And I was doing that for a little bit, and then I went to jail for my first time. I got a felony charge, and so I get out of jail. I'm on probation, and about 6 months later, I go back to jail, and then I completed my probation by serving my time. So I go to jail, get about 42 more charges. Breaking and entering, burglary of unoccupied, all this shit, and they actually dropped all those because they didn't have any proof. It was me. Sounds pretty cool. But I had to wait. I had to wait a little bit of time to get released from that, and then as soon as I get out, I start hitting the streets hard again. And every single time I ever gone to jail, I've been in jail 9 times, and every single time I've ever been in jail, every single time while I was in jail, I'm like, I'm never doing this shit again. And I meant it too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get out. I'm getting my life straight. I'm gonna maybe go to community college, or I'm gonna go do something useful with my life. And I get out, and I start using all over again, and then go to jail again, get out, go to jail again, just in and out, in and out, in and out. And then my mom, I'm on the phone with my mom just the last time I was in jail in Florida, and she said, well, do you want to move up to North Carolina? And I said, well, yeah, I need to make a change. And she said, well, I found you an awesome place. It's called Trosa. And I don't know if anyone here, has been there, but so I leave Florida and I go to Trosa, and they say, you got to pass a drug screen to get in. And the day I get out of jail, I don't consider alcohol a drug at this point in my life. So I told my sister to take me to the liquor store before I get on this airplane. I'm down 6 of those little mini bottles. I got drunk. had to get a nice one in there first. Anyways, moved up to North Carolina. Did Trosa for 2 months. Quit that. They took me on a bus to Charlotte. I'm in Charlotte with a trash bag full of clothes, no phone, no money, no nothing. No idea where I'm at. In this random city. I go into this Asian restaurant, this little Chinese place, and I say, how do I get to Gastonia? And he was like, it's about 30 miles or 30 minutes, or I can't remember what he said, but he said, it's that way. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to start walking. And he said, well, you can't walk there. And I said, why not? And he's like, it's too far. He's like, here, I'll give you the money for the bus ticket. And I said, for real? He's like, yeah. And so he gave me $7. I went to Greyhound, got a bus ticket to Gastonia. That's how I ended up here. I knew my mom and dad lived in Ranlow at the time. And so I'm at the bus station in Gastonia, and from there I didn't know where to go. Where's Ranlow at? And so I met this old guy. He had to have been 90 years old. His name was Bob, and he hunched over like this. He was old as heck, and he had a really bad hunch, and he lived at the Oxford House on 3rd Street. Have you guys ever met that guy? No? No. Oh well. Anyways, he lets me use his cell phone, and I call my mom, and I said, "Hey, I'm in Gastonia. Can you come pick me up?" And she just hangs right up. She was pissed, and the Trosa was probably my 4th or 5th treatment facility. I didn't really want to go into all that, but every treatment facility I ever went in, I just left, and so she was pretty aggravated and upset with me at the time, and so he let me sleep on the couch at the Oxford House on 3rd Street, and that's where I got a little bit of AA introduced to me. He was talking about going to an AA meeting and talking about the clubhouse right down the road from where that house was at, and he's like, well, if you want, I'll talk to the guys and we'll get you voted in tomorrow. And I was like, for real? And he's like, yeah. And so I said, okay. And so I spent the night, and I ain't gonna say their names, but it's a few dudes that I know today that I'm cool with today that were living there, and they voted no. I was like, come on, man. What am I supposed to do now? And then Bob said, well, you can go to the Sally, and that's the Salvation Army. Yeah. And so that's where I went. And the Sally's not a good place to go if you're trying to stay clean. It's just not. And so I got into the Sally, and I'll never forget it. I was putting my backpack down, some other stuff that my mom dropped off for me. I was getting it all put in my little bin, and this dude next to me, his name was Jamie. I'll never forget it. He's like, "Hey, bro, you do subs?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And he was like, "You want one?" And I was like, "Yeah." and that was that right then and there. Like, you need a needle? I was like, "Yeah, I do." And right then and there, hit the ground running hard. But luckily, I had experience at the Waffle House, and I went and I took a binder just like this with paper. And I went to every single business down Franklin, and I wrote down the business that I went to. I wrote down the manager's name and the phone number. I went to every single one in like 2 days, and I ended up getting a job at Highway 55 place. But I was like, you know what? I've got Waffle House experience. Let me go see if they need some help, and they did. And so I got a job there, and I was able to save up a little bit of money and get my own apartment. And that was the worst thing that could have happened for me. I'm living in my own apartment, and then I lose it like within just a couple months, relapse hard, and then I'm homeless in Gastonia. And so, I don't know if you guys have ever been homeless in Gastonia in the wintertime, but sometimes it snows here, and that sucks. I mean, I'm sitting in my tent, all my clothes are ruined, all my electronics are ruined, the water's just seeping through, it's like 28 degrees out, I'm dope sick, I'm just sitting there, paranoid, hallucinating, it sucks. And I'm gonna tell you guys the urine story, because I said I would. So, I'm underneath my bridge. I was like a troll underneath the bridge. Grumpy, dirty. So I'm underneath my bridge, and everything's iced over, and I'm sitting there, I'm taking a piss, and somehow I slip, and I fall down the causeway, I slide down the causeway, in like a trail of my own piss, and then into like a puddle of like 20 other guys' piss. And so I'm like, you can't get any lower than that. I call my mom, and I'm like on the verge of tears. I'm like, please just come pick me up and let me take a shower, please. And then I get to her house. Or no, she comes and picks me up, and as soon as I get in her car, she's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't want to talk about it. And so I asked her for $20, and she said no. And she dropped me back off at my bridge, and I'll speed up a little bit here. Anyhow, I'm living at my buddy's house a couple months later, and I get kicked out, and then start living with my sister. I get kicked out. Everyone's giving me chance after chance after chance, and then my mom finds me a rehab in Boston, Massachusetts, and I say, okay, I'll go. And so I went up there, and within like 8 days, I leave that treatment facility with, once again, a trash bag of clothes. This time I actually had a phone, but no service. I got Wi-Fi on it, and I'm just looking around, and I'm like, whoa, what do I do now? And this is how resourceful addicts are. I remember that one of my ex-girlfriends moved up to Boston a few years back, and I just decided I'd hit her up on Messenger. I was like, hey, are you around, this Walmart? And she's like, yeah, actually, I'm a couple miles away. That's crazy. I said, well, can you come pick me up? She said, yeah. And she comes and picks me up with this Puerto Rican dude. And I mean, he's just rolling, dude. This dude was cool. And we get back to his hotel room, I guess. He was like, hey man, you want to hit? And he showed me this box he had, and it was probably like a kilo of cocaine in there. And I was like, yeah. And so I'm doing that. I'm able to call my mom. I said, just please let me get me a plane ticket back to Charlotte. I'll do anything. I promise. This just wasn't for me. I'm done. I'll never use again. I'm done. And she said, okay, this is the last time I'll ever do anything for you. And so she gets me a plane ticket back, and I'll never forget it. I got to do fentanyl for the first time in my life that night, and I got to do it getting on a plane, and I got to do it flying over Manhattan. And I was like, back to Charlotte. And she came and picked me up, and not long after that, I moved back in with my sister. She kicks me out, I relapse, and then that's that. But anyhow, so I'm at my buddy's house, and the cops come in, and they get me for trafficking heroin, which I wasn't trafficking, but somehow I got charged with it, and I go to jail. When those, I think somehow when the cuffs went on that time, I think that was the most free I've ever felt in my life. That's I truly felt like, wow, I actually have a place to go tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have something to eat. I know jail's gonna suck, but it's okay. I just need to sleep and eat and figure this out because I'm literally willing to do whatever it takes. And that's the cunning, baffling, powerful ness of addiction and alcoholism, I think, because I was sitting in my buddy's house, minding my own business, not causing trouble, completely out of the spotlight, you could say, and I thought I was safe, and then all of a sudden the door gets kicked in and a bunch of Gaston County police don't come in there. And so, when the cuffs went on, I made the realization that no matter what I do, I can't beat this thing. And no matter and if I'm going to be continuing to use, like, no matter what I do, that's just going to happen to me all the time. And so I went to jail. And then, I would like to say that my last time using was at the guy's house, but it wasn't. Someone came in with some heroin, and I traded $20 with the commissary for it. It was a tiny little piece, and I did it. Didn't even feel it. And I was sitting in my cell, just so confused on, like, I am beat. Like, it just reassured my feelings I had 2 weeks ago. Like, I am beat. And so my lawyer helps me get into this program called, and that was May 11th, 2000. I actually don't know my real sobriety date, but it was about May 11th because it was in jail when I used it. I wasn't keeping track of the dates of, especially my sobriety date. But when I got into rehab, I had to go back and calculate it, and that's the best I could figure out. But so my lawyer was able to get me into the DDAT program, which was the diversion from drugs and alcohol treatment program, and that was through Phoenix. And they said that if I complete the program, they'll drop my trafficking heroin down to a possession with manufacturing and delivering, and then it'll be a degree of felony that allows me to have probation instead of mandatory prison time. So I was like, yeah, let's do that for sure. And so this is where my life started to change dramatically. One, because for the first time in my life, I was actually willing to do whatever you guys told me to do. I didn't really believe in God when I first came in here. And you guys told me to pray every single day. And I've shared this before in meetings, but I'll share it now because I think it's really powerful. So I was praying every single morning and every single night. And I still had that obsession on me of wanting to just leave, wanting to use, wanting to abscond, just do my own thing. And I was praying every single day and morning. And then somewhere around the 2 or 3 month mark, I woke up one day and I was going about my day, and then it just hit me. I was like, I'm really happy, and I can't remember the last time I wanted to use. And so that right there, sealed the deal for me, with the God thing. I still don't know to this day, what my God is, or if it's even, you can't really, he or she or it or what it could be. But I know that it's real and that it works. And so that time in my sobriety was really beneficial for me. And when I completed the DDAT program, and I'm going to an AA meeting every single day at this point, and NA, sometimes multiple times a day, 2 or 3 meetings. I did 153 meetings my first 90 days. They say make 90 and 90. I did 153 and 90. And a lot of people did a lot of service work helping me and helping the people I was with. And out of all the people I was with and got sober with, none of them are still sober today. I think there's maybe 1 or 2, actually. I don't want to say none. But that's it. And when I got into AA and saw everybody having a good time and laughing and doing all that, I ain't going to say that everybody in AA, what I was just saying before about there's only 1 or 2 people still sober, I wasn't talking about people in the meetings. I was talking about people I was in treatment with. But when I came into my first meeting, I saw everyone laughing, having a good time, socializing, and I was just like, this ain't for me, bro. This sucks. But I saw what y'all had, happiness. You guys were happy, joy, and free, and I wanted that shit so bad. And so I just kept coming back, and I got a sponsor when you guys told me to get a sponsor. And I started taking the steps. You guys told me to start taking the steps. And I was able to complete that treatment program. And I was able to get probation. And I didn't want to leave treatment and go back to my sister's house because I didn't think I was ready. You know, I only had like 4 months at the time, or something, 5 months or something like that. So I went to another treatment program. I went to Cornerstone in Gastonia. And I stayed there for 6 or 7 months. And then I left there, and I got back into the CTI program with Phoenix, the Critical Time Intervention program. I stayed with them for I think it was 9 months or something like that. So altogether, I don't know, it was 15 to 18 months in treatment. And that's what worked for me. And I was able to, meetings were mandatory. I needed a lot of structure in my life. I have a sponsor, and he did take me through all 12 steps. And, the first 3 steps for me were pretty freaking simple. 1, I can't do it, and 2, he can do it, and 3, I think I'll let him. And that's we got through the first 3 pretty quickly. And then I got my 4th step done. I had 16 resentments on my 4th step. And then we did my 5th step at Dynasty, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so 3-4 hours there. Yep. And then, he told me go home and do my 6th step and open the book. So I did 6 and 7, and I got done praying and doing what the book said to do. I didn't feel any different. I thought I was gonna be cured. And I was like, that do it right. I don't think But anyways, called him the next day. He said, we'll start writing the men's list. So started doing my 8th step. And then, the 9th step for me was the hardest step. I got to make my first amends to my sister for putting her through so much shit and having people in her house and stealing from her and doing so much stuff. And, for the first time in a long time, I cried like a baby on that night. I was outside. It was a Sunday night, and she was dropping me off at the faith group. And it was about 7:55. She pulled in the parking lot, and I said, I gotta get something off my chest. And then I broke down, and I could barely talk, and I was just crying and sobbing like a baby. And then I was too embarrassed to go in the meeting because I thought you guys were thinking I was gonna be crying or that I was crying, so I was too scared to go in there. So I had to wait 20 minutes. And I finally went in there. But the 9th step for me was so freeing. I don't know why it was the 9th step, but for me it was, I got to make amends with a lot of people. I got to make amends with the guy in Florida that ran a treatment facility, and I owed him some money. And I was able to, that same house I was living in got hit with a hurricane, and the roof got all messed up. And I was able to give him $300 towards a new roof for his treatment facility. And that was, I think I had 5 years clean at the time. So that was, that wasn't a direct amend real quick. That was, I thought about him one random day, and I was like, ooh, that'd be a good amends right there. I called him up. You remember me? He's like, no. I owe you about $350. I rushed out on you. He's like, a lot of people do that, son. And I was like, well, I'm gonna make my amends, man. How can I pay you back? Because I owe you some money. He was like, this is the first time in 32 years anyone's ever done that. And so that actually felt pretty good. And the 10th step, once I got to step 10, I want to go back a little bit. Once I got done with my 6 and 7, I felt really invested in this program. I was like, I'm freaking halfway done with the steps. I feel invested. A lot of people I see that go back out don't get to step 4, or they quit step 4, step 5. A lot of people will sit on step 4 for a long time. That's not a good place to be. From what I've seen, I'm just saying, I don't make the rules around here, but just
Ricky makes the rules.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But
and I agree.
Yeah. But anyways, once I got 6 and 7 done, I just felt like, dude, I can actually do this. I'm amazed, and I'm not even halfway through, or I'm about halfway through. And so I wanted to continue to do the rest of the steps. So I get to my step 10, and to me, 10, 11, and 12, and I'm sure everybody else can agree with this. Is pretty much the maintenance steps. And so, if I won't start none, there won't be none. That's how I kind of figure my step 10. And when I am wrong, I try to promptly admit it. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but I try my best. In my step 11, if I just keep doing what I did today to stay sober, if I do that again tomorrow, then I won't have any worries. If I keep that conscious contact. I ain't been doing the best job with that lately. Now, I'm telling myself, this is a program of honesty. Sometimes life gets really busy, and sometimes you just forget about it. And then your life starts to suck a little bit. Yeah. And then your buddies say, hey, why don't you go to a meeting? And then you start going to meetings, you start praying again, and all of a sudden you're in a better mood. Where'd you look at that? The 10, 11, and 12 just sums up 1 through 9 every day for me. And then, step 12 obviously help somebody else. Haven't had a spiritual awakening. I was spiritually asleep my whole life. Yeah. And, I get the luxury of being spiritually awake today, and being aware of what's really going on. And I can see myself coming today, whereas back in the day, I couldn't see myself coming, So if I have an issue that I got going on, I got a full phone full of numbers. I could look right now, but I don't feel like pulling my phone out, but I probably got over 100 people in AA. I got all their numbers, and it says AA. Yeah. And then Anthony's one of the top ones, so I'll start with Anthony. But I think I have pretty much everybody's number in here, and it says AA and then your name, and it's all right at the top of my list. So I can't even make an excuse. Oh, I couldn't. I had to scroll down too far. Nope, it's right there. And I just wanted to share a couple of promises that came true for me, and then I'll get us wrapped up here. When I didn't get my first car until I had about 18 months, and then I got my first true relationship at about 18 or 19 months right after I got the car. And then, so stuff started to happen for me. But I didn't realize that the first year of my recovery would have been probably the best year of my recovery. When I got to year number 2, 3, 4, life started to get really hard for me because A, I quit. I slacked up on my program, and B, because I thought I had it figured out. I had to be in control. Shit had to go my way, and I thought I was doing the best I've ever done. So I thought I was doing it at that point. And I got to get pretty humbled by all that. Anyways, I've learned from my mistakes, and so now I got to open up my own business. I got to work at treatment facilities. I've got to go into jails and prisons and carry the message and help addicts. I've got to go under bridges with bags of clothes and deodorant and sunscreen and food and water and all that shit, and give them out to people. And I really got to give back what was freely given to me. And it's been such an amazing journey doing that. But recently I had a career change. I got to start I'm doing AC now, HVAC work, and I'm getting to learn a lot about it. And I work with guys that are in the program. And so I get to, work with people in recovery. I get to talk to them all day about it. We don't really talk about recovery too much, but it's just really good. I get to be surrounded by people in recovery. My girlfriend now, she's in recovery. My job's in recovery. I got a home group. So I try to keep, recovery first. And I saw this really cool saying on Facebook a couple of days ago. It said, a slip stands for sobriety loses its priority. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. And at the time, I hadn't been in a meeting in 2 or 3 weeks. This was like last Thursday. And so I I'm trying to rekindle that relationship with AA because it's given me so much shit. Like I have my own truck, I have a car, I have a house, I have everything I could possibly want. And if I'm not careful, I'm just going to keep wanting more and more and more and more and more. And I'm trying to fill a God-sized hole in myself with all this material bullshit. And so I got to be real careful with that because my happiness doesn't come from out here. It comes from right here. And I don't know if anybody needed to hear that, but I guess I need to I need to hear it for myself. That's why I said it. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. But thanks for letting me speak, Whitney. Happy birthday. And that's all I got.